Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Frontline, brought to us by Taito. Frontline is a famicom-only port of an arcade game of the same name. In it, your goal is to march along the front lines of a battlefield, making it to the base and then taking over the base. You'll then restart at the beginning of the line and have to work your way back up again. It is an arcade-based game, so your main goal is actually to go for high score. So here we go with Frontline for the Famicom. You control this one character who has, it looks like one arm, because of the way every time he kind of moves, then the gun may switch to his other arm, in which case you actually can see it. It's a one-hit kill kind of game, and your goal is to march your way up this long line of enemies, dodging out of the way of various trees and other obstacles. You can actually man a tank and use that to help you out while traversing the land, and your goal is to reach the inevitable end where you take over the castle or base. The game doesn't really feature any music, just the sound effects of the character walking back and forth, which will start to grit on your nerves pretty quickly. As you have only the one gun at your disposal, aiming and getting used to the aiming definitely takes a little bit of time, but it's one-hit kill on the enemies as well, so it doesn't take too long before you get used to it. The greenish area here is actually grass, so you can walk on it. And the enemies themselves kind of blend in because your enemies that you're facing are also green colored. Up here we're going to jump inside of the tank and then use this, which allows us to maneuver a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. But in reality we're actually a little bit smaller than we were on foot, it seems like. But either way, the tank is of course your best mode of transportation while traveling through. When you do damage to the smaller tanks, it's a single shot, but it actually takes two shots to take out the bigger tanks. Thankfully, you'll usually have a bit of notice because you can't go all the way to the very top of the screen, so you can see new enemies that have just spawned and are starting to come your way from the top portion of the screen. There aren't a lot of enemies on screen at a given time, so the combat moves relatively slowly. When you make it up here, cross the bridge as there is water on the opposite side as you can see, and then keep progressing along. The larger tanks, when you fire the one shot at them, they'll eventually explode anyway, even if you don't fire another shot at them, though you may be able to get damaged by them if you run into the tanks. On your first time through, the enemy fire is also relatively slow, and sometimes you may be able to just keep going past an enemy and they'll follow you and not actually fire. I found this happening quite a few times throughout me playing through the game. When you make it to the top, we're going to jump out, then run up to the left side here and throw a grenade. This will bypass the artillery weapon that's on top of the base and destroy it as well, allowing us to then move on to our second loop through the game. For completing one loop through, you do get a bonus of 3,000 points, which is multiplied by the amount of times you've currently passed through. You then go back to the very beginning and start over again. Every time you go through a loop, the enemies do get a little bit quicker, and I guess a little bit more intelligent when going through, but it's the same exact battlefield each time you go through it. One of the other things that does change up is what tank you get for the second half. It seems to be at random, but either sometimes you're going to get that small tank, or sometimes you may get the larger tank. There is, however, something very annoying I find about the tank itself. While you're in a tank, even if you run into a regular land soldier, you still end up dying from making contact with them, which I just find to be a bit odd. Besides the handgun, you could use the grenade on your normal enemies, which does actually do a blast radius amount of damage, so it will affect enemies around the explosion, but overall, I end up finding the regular straight gunfire to be better. When we make it up here, you'll see that we got the larger tank this time around, and our fire, when we fire out, not only does it hit a bigger area, it also does kind of that explosion radius damage, just like one of our hand grenades. You start off with 3 lives in the game, and you can get more based on the amount of score that you end up getting, Interesting enough, when it comes to the score, the game can only count up to 99,999. Once it reaches that plateau, it actually rolls back over to 0, which I found pretty interesting. Since you move really slowly inside a tank or even on foot, maneuvering is actually one of the tougher things to get used to in the game. But for an arcade shooter style game like this, overall it's not too difficult, especially through your first couple of loops through the game. This game was actually ported over to many home consoles, and a few of those actually did make it to North America. While this version did not make it over to the North American NES, it did come to North America for the Atari 2600. And honestly, while playing through the game, it actually kind of felt like it would be right at home on the 2600 instead of on the Famicom. When we make it to the top again, we're getting out of the tank, throw our grenade like we did last time, and destroy the artillery weapon before it's able to even fire off a shot at me. I get my bonus points for 3,000 points times 2, because it's my second lap through the game, and then it starts over, and we can continue the madness, well, until we either run out of lives, or until we get bored. I, for one, can only stand a little bit of those sound effects before I end up having to turn the sound on mute. But that will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. Now if you enjoyed this Famicom only experience, be sure to check out a much better Famicom only game, Adventure Island 4, that I did a while back. Of course, also I want to thank all the members of my Patreon. Your guys' continued support is allowing me to keep doing these videos, doing the playthroughs, doing the reviews, the live streaming, everything else that I do amongst all the Cornshaq channels. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching and all your support, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.